Hello, I'm Sandra Nichols on TAN TV, and today we're celebrating San Antonio's tricentennial, 300 Voices in 300 Days. And I have with me none other than Mr. Derrick Howard. He's here to celebrate and talk about his story, his life, and the contributions that he's made to our city. So, Mr. Howard, welcome. Welcome to TAN TV.
Thank you.
Yes, so just want to ask you just a few questions. I want you to just open up and share with us some of the things that you've done here in the city of San Antonio. But first off, tell me, where were you born?
Well, I'm actually from the South, a little small town in Mississippi, Brookhaven, Mississippi. It's kind of in between Jackson and Macomb, maybe two of the more popular towns in Mississippi, so from the South.
Okay, from the South. Now I have to jump right into this. How did you end up here in San Antonio?
I kind of by a lot of travel. So I ended up finishing high school in Houston.
Okay.
Shortly after Houston, I ended up went to college at Prairie View. Following my graduating from Prairie View, I ended up coming to San Antonio to work for a company called Monsanto, as an agrochemical sales rep. Within a period of time, I actually left that company, went to work with a company banking entity called Victoria Savings. Which was a SNL that became taken over by the REO. This is back when we had some major issues with real estate and the real estate market. I guess back in the 1992-ish years.
Okay.
And so worked there for a little while, and then following that, went to work for the city of San Antonio. At the city, I worked for a gentleman by the name of Andrew Cameron, where I learned a tremendous amount about administration and operating under the city government and city guidance. Was pretty quickly kind of taken up from a perspective of being, I would say, mentored by Ruth Jones McClendon, Alex Virginio. And then during that tenure, I was picked to come out and work actually here on the east side of San Antonio to set up an economic development office here on the east side of San Antonio under Ruth's leadership.
Well, tell me before we go into that, because I do want to hear more about that. So you grew up in Mississippi, ended up moving to Houston, went to school at Prairie View.
Correct.
And do you get to go back there and visit, or do you have most of your family still in the Mississippi area?
Yeah, actually, my family's all over. I do get back to Houston pretty regularly, so I have a lot of friends, and my brother's there. And I get back to Mississippi not too often, but my mom loves San Antonio, so she comes here more than I go back home.
Oh, okay. And most people do. We get a lot of visitors here to this pretty awesome city. So tell me then a little bit about what you're doing right now.
So fast forward today, my role is I oversee the county's arena complex, which includes the Freeman Coliseum, the AT&T Center, and all the buildings and grounds. And I work for a board that's appointed by the Commissioner's Court as the director of the site. My daily job requires me to oversee, run, and manage and operate the Coliseum and the outbuildings while overseeing our contract with the Spurs and the rodeo for their use of the AT&T Center.
Oh, okay. So you stay pretty busy
most days.
Yes.
Yeah.
So your job keeps you really busy. What are some of the boards? I'm sure you're on a number of boards and you do some volunteer work in the city.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that.
So, the one thing I learned early on was that you got to give back, and that, which is really important. And I've had the privilege of serving on small nonprofits to large nonprofits to, I currently am about to complete my 10th year on the CPS Energy Board, which is it's a pretty prominent board for many reasons. CPS Energy is the largest publicly owned utility in the country. With over 3,000 employees and about $11 billion net asset base company operating. I've also served on the board of Goodwill San Antonio to include being chair of that board for 2 years, many years ago. I currently also serve on the San Antonio Independent School District's Foundation Board, and I just rolled off from being chair of that board a year ago as well.
Okay.
So I try to stay busy.
You do stay busy then. So this board that you served on, the Education Foundation Board, And you all, I know that's a pretty large district. I live in the Judson area,
Okay.
and so I'm familiar. I actually sat on our education board there
Okay.
and did quite a bit of work. And so would you say you enjoy doing that quite a bit, or you've rolled out of that role now, or?
So like most boards, I mean, you go on to it because you're invited to serve by people who feel that you would make a great member along with them.
Right.
And in my case, I've happened to be asked to serve as chair because education is really important to me for a lot of different reasons, and specifically education to kids who are a lot like me. SAACAM is a district that services the inner city school system, which are inner city school children.
Right.
Which to me are, the kids who need the most or more help because their lives aren't as normal in many cases as most, and so that they may not be as blessed or is not as fortunate in some cases. And so the things that we're able to do with the foundation, we really focus on helping to fund what we call innovative grants in the classroom. And so the monies that we raise go back into the classroom to help teachers support these kids in ways that the regular education system may not fund or support or allow them to do.
Okay. What are some of the other volunteer efforts that you've been involved in this city? It sounds like you really like working with children and helping them in some way.
One of the things I've done at Freeman, too, it's really community-based and then education-based. It's always been a hook. So I'll give you two examples. One was strictly education. So when I became the director for the Coliseum site, the first thing I did is I went and adopted Tyning Elementary, which is a school just a stone's throw from the Coliseum. And in adopting that school, I found out from the teacher, most like inner city school districts, many kids had challenges. And so we worked to every year support those kids by raising monies for uniforms, for things as simple as toothbrush and hair shampoo for the kids. Because in many cases, these kids would leave school on a Friday afternoon and not eat until they returned on Monday morning. And no fault of the kids, but at the end of the day, the community need to be there to support it. And so we really push for that. The other thing we've done as we push for community service is we went to some of the agencies on the east side that help support entities and individuals through the different needs, whether it be for food assistance, for housing assistance, for housing support assistance. And we've actually painted 2 homes on the east side, just my team. And the homeowners have been very, very happy about that. And so we're always looking for ways to kind of give back and contribute.
Yeah, what an impact then that you've made on, because a lot of times I don't think people really think about that, the impact that they're making on the lives. Sometimes we do things just kind of bigger effort instead of focusing, kind of honing in on, a certain school maybe.
Right.
And I think that's pretty awesome then. So tell me, when people think of you, what are you most known for in this city when they hear your name?
Wow. I wish I could answer that.
That's a good question, isn't it?
Yeah, that is a really good question. I have no idea because my perspective is I tend to wear many hats and I'm involved in a lot of different things. And so I would love to know the answer to that myself.
When I find out, I'll let you know.
Yeah.
So the job that you have now, and I know you were telling me some of the other things that you've done here in the city that led you to that. What are some positions that you've held that you've been just very involved in or most proud of, I guess?
So if I go back to like shortly after college, as I mentioned, I was in the banking industry. And it was fortunate, but at the same time unfortunate. I went from being effectively kind of a file reviewer and distributor to the different loan offices to actually having my own portfolio as a vice president of a bank at about 22 years old. Managing a real estate portfolio that was pretty significant in size with assets that range from apartment complexes to warehouses to airplanes.
Right.
Then from there, I went over to the city, and again, I go back to I think the comment that I made about that's where I think cracked my teeth in learning a lot about government and the cycle of all of the entities that are involved in supporting the community, from streets and drainage to healthcare to police and fire and protection, to all of those things, and which was, I think, a great experience for me. All the while, I think honing in more on I have an economic background with a minor in marketing, honing in on my economic background and skill sets, and allowing me to really become a much better business operator and manager as I am today.
Great, great. Well, tell me, since we're not really sure what you're most known for in the city, what would you say, tell me, I guess, about maybe some of your significant contributions then to the city. We talked about a number of things, but what would you say has just been a significant contribution for you to the city of San Antonio?
One of the things, and as we're celebrating 300, and I think as we're looking at the contributions specifically of African Americans, I feel like I've been a role model for the African American community, because as we are interacting with people that don't look like us, there's so much negativity, and there's a lot of stereotypical impressions about us.
Right.
But until you get to meet me or you, spend some time with me or you, and get to know me or you better, and once you do that, those impressions kind of disappear. And so I think one of the most important things I've been able to do is take this color and begin to make it disappear in many, many eyes.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome then. Well, San Antonio to me is just a really unique city for so many reasons. But what do you most like about living here in this city?
I'm an outdoors person, and so I am 30 minutes away from the lake. I am an hour and 20 minutes and an hour and a half away from the coast. I am 45 minutes away from a great deer hunt. I am, a block away from a great golf course. There are just so many things I love about San Antonio, and I am surrounded by great restaurants and good people.
Yes, the food is great here,
Absolutely.
Isn't it? Yes, yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there is a lot of outdoorsy things to do here. I used to go up to Canyon Lake, and I don't know if that's the lake that you're referring to,
Absolutely.
but Canyon Lake.
Canyon, the LBJ.
To fish and camp.
The Lake Travis.
Yeah, there's water all around us. And so sometimes when people come into the city, they only know, a few things. People always think about the Riverwalk and not really think about all of the other things that this city brings. So
exactly.
There's a lot going on here. Now, you have to tell me, I want to go back to just tell me a little bit about your family and who has been most influential in your life.
Oh, that's a really easy one. I was raised by a single parent.
Okay.
My mother. And so my mother raised my sister and I by herself. And, at the end of the day, as I have a daughter who's a sophomore in college, I think about, I often think or hark back on, my mom's experience with me. And if it were not for her consistency and her, I think, as I would call it, her steel hand in molding me, I certainly could be in a much different place today.
Yes, yes. So your mother, and then with your daughter, so is she in school here, or does she live in the city, or?
She's actually a sophomore at Southwestern University in Georgetown, Texas.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay, that's an awesome school.
Yeah.
Yes, great. And lastly, why do you feel it's important as an African American to tell your own story?
Well, I'll approach that from two perspectives. A good friend of mine, has always said that, when people read history, they more often read books that have been written by someone else about someone. And you hope you get a good writer because you want your story to be interesting.
Right.
But at the same time, while you live in life, make it interesting by the people that you interact and would encounter.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you want it to be interesting and you want it to be accurate, too. Again, this is Sandra Nichols on TAN TV, and we are proud to have with us again Mr. Derrick Howard as we talked about his contributions, his life, and his story as an African American to the city of San Antonio. We're celebrating 300 Voices in 300 Days on TAN TV.